Starting now. So the show, if you go to the YouTube, our page on Facebook, that link can be on there to share. All right, guys, I'm here with Coach Wickard and Ryan, author of Speed Compendium. We're going to wait. We're going to get some more people in here, and we're going to start the show. Guys, we'll be starting the show in a second here. We're trying to get some more people in here. We're going to talk about, is it more important to run faster later as a junior in high school or early as an incoming freshman? Guys, thank you for joining the show. We sending out some invites, so just bear with us. We'll be starting in a moment. All right, Twitter is up. All right, let me make a share. All right, Coach Wickard, if you can share to the National Track and Field Group and DFW. I can't get it on mine over here.
Yeah, well, and I'm trying to be honest with you, I'm trying to do it to my iPad, and I'm not seeing the share button. I could be totally not seeing it though.
Yeah, that you go on our Facebook page. It's gonna you go to the actual video on the Facebook page, the live video, and it'll be under that. Click on that.
I've shared the link.
All right.
You shared it, Ryan?
Yeah, on Twitter. I just copied it.
Okay, I did too. I'm trying to. There it is. What the?
Now it's showing me the spinning wheel of death when I pull it up on mine, but I don't know if that's because I'm broadcasting.
And when I click share on the Facebook page, it just pops up with the live video. I'm not able to get a link.
Yeah, it's live. We got a couple in here now. Let me see what's going on Facebook.
I'll try it this way.
Yeah, I'm up and running on Facebook, and I'll share it. And I can send y'all the link also if y'all need that.
I think
All right, guys, let's bear with us. We're sending out some invites and some shares. We're going to talk about if it's more important to run faster later in high school or early as a freshman. All right. We got a couple in here now. Let me see what's going on Facebook. All right. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just let me know if you need more time.
I'm good to go whenever you're ready.
You good to go?
I think we're good.
You good?
Yep.
All right, guys. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to ETTGYA. We got a special show today. I got the dynamic duo here today with us. We have a good topic, very good topic we're going to talk about. We're going to get right into that, but I want to show you this video. It's going to be brought to you by Trackborn, all right? So for all your track and field needs, go to trackborn.com. If you need equipment, you need custom uniforms, anything you need, go to trackborn.com. You can type in TexasTrackDad and that will give you 10% off, okay? All right. So I have Mr. Track and Field himself, 5-star author of Speed Compendium, Ryan Banta. Ryan, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your book. There you go.
Yeah, so about 2012, I came back from the Emerging Elite Track and Field Coaches Clinic out of Chula Vista, California, at the Olympic Training Center, and kind of got into some discussions with some folks about different things. And I was already writing for a website called EliteTrack.com. And it was funny because we're sitting around the cafeteria just, yucking it up and having a conversation with fellow like-minded coaches. And one of the coaches brings up this story about an article they read, and it was my article.
Yeah.
and at that point, I was like, wait a second, people are actually reading my stuff. Oh no, I got to be a little bit more mindful of my grammar and making sure I'm giving them quality content. And I had already been bouncing around the idea of making a book. And, I came back to my wife and she agreed that this is something that I probably should take on. And it took about 5 years from that point to reach the finish line. And thankfully, the Sprinter's Compendium has been sold in 40 plus countries around the world. And, I'm still, a lot of coaches are still trusting in me and purchasing it and having a lot of good value that comes out of the book. And, there's 50 contributing coaches from around the world in it. And so that's kind of how I got that started. And I've been a high school coach the entire time. So I'm at the grassroots level, just like many of you who are listening tonight.
Nice. Good deal. And we have Mr. Wingage himself, Coach Wickard. Because if you run a fast time, Coach Wickard gonna want to know if it was a wind gauge out there.
That's
I
right.
guarantee you that.
Texas.
So Coach Wickard, he's the founder of Tier 1. He's going to tell you more about that. And also with Ryan, you can buy that book, Sprinter's Compendium. You can buy that on, there you go. There you go. You can buy that on Amazon as well. And it should be a link in that description title. If not, let me know. I'll go back and correct it. But go ahead, Coach Wickard.
Yeah, so I spent 14 years at the Division I level coaching sprints and hurdles. Been all over the country from mid-major to Power 5 to D2, and had a child, and it changes your life. And so I said, I need more time with my family. And so I left the college coaching field, and now I'm doing private coaching for developing speed and hurdles in the DFW area for athletes from 9 to 18 years old.
And a good thing about Tier 1 too, he also offers mentorship, right? With if you have questions about recruitment or anything like that, he offers that. So make sure you check Coach Wickard out. He's on Facebook, he's on Instagram, he's on Twitter. Make sure you check him out. All right. Also, what we're going to talk about, the main topic today is going to be: is it more important to run faster later as a junior, senior, whatever, or early coming in as a freshman, right? So what I'm doing, guys, I'm giving my take first as a parent, right? Because you guys are the professional. I'm just Texas Track Dad. That's all I am, right? That's all I am. So my take on it is athletes coming in their freshman year, I feel that, they need to get their name out there, and it's important for them to, I'm not going to say be a state champion, but I think it's important for them to run fast times, right? It's important for them to run fast times. But my thing is, if you kind of not push them so much and wait later, what if they get hurt their senior year, their junior year, and they to get them times early, that's my take on it. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of on the line with it. I get it. Later is fine because you want to develop, you want to make sure they develop correctly, right? Then you want them to get stronger. But coming in, I think they need to hit it. I think they need to hit it. So, what are y'all thoughts?
Ryan, you go first, buddy.
Well, it's an interesting topic because if we're talking about, early development, right? So females tend to come in, and then this is in my experience, the females tend to come in a little bit more mature. They tend to hit puberty earlier. They tend to be more developed earlier than dudes. Obviously, in a perfect world, we want everybody to run as fast as they can, as early as they can. I think what the problem is more than just development is kind of the social emotional aspects of running really fast, really soon, sometimes stunts the long-term peak development of a person because attitudes get in the way, too many people get in the way. There's too many coaches, too many high school coaches, too many personal trainers, too many aunties and uncles and friends, and everybody thinks, ooh, I can circle the wagons around this person and I can be more influential on the scene. I can get more people involved if I hooked this really talented kid into my system. Now, when that is done the right way with the right type of coach and the right type of relationship, that's great. But oftentimes it's just one of those things where the athlete loses some of that motivation, some of that drive, some of that interest, because early on they're already dominating. So it takes a really unique person who dominates early to dominate later. If you look at international track and field in Europe, a lot of their world junior representatives, the Commonwealth Game juniors, all these different types of things that they have for European track and field, they get these kids developed really, really early and they run really fast. But then when it comes time for the Olympics or the World Championships, the United States and Jamaica is still most of the time spanking that butt with kids who weren't necessarily super fast early on. One of the best examples, and Justin can expand on this, but like Tyson Gay was not extraordinarily fast until he got to the University of Arkansas with Lance Browman, and then he ran some just monumentally. He's the second fastest man in the world, of all time, and that's not something to sneeze at. So I believe that oftentimes it's not the physical thing I'm so concerned about; it's the social emotional thing that gets in the way. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I would agree with Ryan on that one. Just because if they run fast early, the expectation now goes bigger tremendously. So if you're a freshman and you run fast, and let's say it's fast enough to now college coaches are going, ooh, college coaches are still gonna wait because they're only a freshman. However, now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, here comes a scholarship. Here comes this. Here comes that. Or same thing. Like everyone's dream is to make the Olympic team. Unfortunately, not everyone is like Sydney McLaughlin and some other ladies, that have made the Olympic team when they were, in high school. It's rare, and so I think there has to be a balance. There definitely has to be a good system in place with a good support of network of people around that they can trust and be guided by and know that everyone involved has the best interest of the kid, not of, hey, we got to do it right now because it's going to make me look good. Because at the end of the day, as a college coach, yeah, freshman times you might run fast, sophomore run fast. Okay, we're starting to look. But to me, I don't care what you ran your freshman or sophomore year, because a lot can change from after your sophomore year. Especially, if you want to, like Ryan talked about, like for females, they mature a lot quicker and a lot sooner, okay, than the guys. However, we also know that usually after sophomore year, some other things start changing within the females, and a lot can happen after sophomore year. Like, whoa, totally different person, and so that can play a factor in as well. Obviously with the guys and going through puberty, and then changes of hormone levels and all that stuff, that's going to have an impact as well. So I think it's more of, if we're going to run fast and you do run fast, I think it's really important as a coach to sit back and like, okay, what things do I need to keep them with the basics? Let me not rush into like, ooh, I got something special here. Let me just, like Ryan says, fry the steak and it's done by the time they're a junior. We've seen that over and over again in the youth. So I mean, I think it has to be a balance. It's got to be a plan in place. But from a college coaching standpoint, doesn't matter until you're a junior.
So here's my question to both of y'all. So how can you prepare that athlete mentally for that? Are you going to go to him say, hey, I want you to run fast, but not as fast, because we need to develop you more. Give it all, but not give it your all. You see what I'm saying? So what's the process on that? Do you tell them, hey, go out there, we want you to run good? Hey, freshman year is not as important. We go focus on down the line. We're going to get you stronger, but I still need you to try to make it to state the best way you can.
I think this is where probably Ryan does the best, honestly, because I know he's probably going to sit down and ask what the expectations are of the kid, and then is that expectation coming from the kid or is it coming from the parents? As a coach, you got to distinguish that real quick. And then sitting down and telling them where we're going, this is where we're starting. These are the things why we need to start here, because this is going to help you later. Because if we don't have these foundations in place, then you're not going to hit this gear, because you got to have these in place, stable, and so that you can execute it correctly over time to be able to go to. Because like I always say, you can't just go from 11 flat, okay, as a guy, and all of a sudden next year 10-2. It's going to take progress. And I think as a kid, they don't understand those steps. So you need to guide them through that. That's just my opinion. And then obviously the conversations with the parents involved with that too.
Yeah, I've had we have very involved parents who are really interested with a really talented kid. So let's say the kid's already ran really fast and now they're spending some time with you and you have to take some steps backwards, or look, it is not the expectation that in February in Texas, in your first track meet out of the gate, that you're going to run a personal best. It's just not likely to happen. Now, if it does, that's great. That's exciting. That's wonderful. But it's not likely. I had two young men who both ran under 4:10 in the mile. Okay. They were twin brothers. And I remember having a conversation with the dad saying, listen, they're going to run a little bit slower because we've been doing different types of work to deal with the things that they were missing in training. Because in this phase, I want to get some of this stuff done because I know that the guy that I'm going to hand them off to as like a baton, like the athletes are the baton, and we as the coaches are trying to get that baton around the track without catastrophe. And so I have my job to do on my leg of the athlete's career to take care of them, to help them get to the finish line with a good time. And sure enough, they went out and they ran a decent time. And then I said, now listen, in my career at this stage in this part of the program, typically this athlete is going to run 20 seconds faster in the 1600 or the mile, depending on what it is, at the end of the year. And sure enough, they did. And they both went way under, 4:10, both of them. And in fact, the funny thing about it is they didn't run much faster when they got into college. And then the conversation is, well, did you stunt their development through training, or did the other guy do it? It's like, no, it's not that at all. They were in a radically different situation, and they moved up in events. They became really good at the 5K and the 10K, and one of the young men were all Big 12 and ran, right at 4 flat on a number of times. It was an All-American, and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see the choices that are made, and you have to have that conversation with the parents and with the other coaches so that they know what the plan is. Like anytime somebody comes to me from another school, which doesn't happen as often anymore because I have a family, just like Justin was talking about, and I got kids. So there's things that I'm not involved in outside of my own high school program that I used to be much more heavily involved in. But when I was, and I would have that conversation with the high school coach, I'd say, look, they're coming to me. I want you to know that they're coming to me. If you don't want them to be with me, that's a conversation you need to have. But here are the things I'm going to do. What are some things you would like me to do or like me to work on? And that's always been the best way to do it. Now, conversely, I've had coaches say all sorts of crazy stuff when a kid, for whatever reason, decides to go somewhere else for winter conditioning instead of with us. But then what the concern is, and I found this to be pretty true, is most of the time those kids go away from me, they get hurt because there's too much of this work that is at a level like Justin was talking about, where the intensities are really, really high, which is great. But like, let me give you this example. This is let me land my airplane. When Usain Bolt ran 9.69 and broke the world record in 2008, I knew that happened. I saw it on my phone, but there was no video in 2008. So I knew going into the night when I saw the recording, I knew I was going to see the world record and I was going to see the gold medal. But what I didn't know, because I didn't see it, I just saw the time, not the movement. I wasn't aware that he was going to jog the last 20 meters, turn to the side and slap his chest and make a mockery of the entire planet, and almost like have a Matrix moment where I'm like, is this even real that I'm witnessing? This guy's like a video game. And at that point, the time was already impressive, but now became ludicrous in terms of what he was able to run while jogging the last 20 meters. The same idea is true when you see a 10-meter fly, a 30-meter fly, a 20-meter fly, a 100-meter dash time. You're like, that's a really fast time. But how did that athlete look doing it? Were they technically proficient? Were they moving correctly? Or are they in a situation that at some point you're kind of like, you could put a Ferrari engine in a Toyota Tercel, but that Toyota is going to blow up if that car doesn't have a radical change to its frame and its tires and everything else so that it can handle this engine that it's got running down the track. That's kind of my point.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and guys, what's so y'all know I did a poll, right? I did a poll on IG, and I did a poll on Twitter. And this is interesting. So on Instagram, which is more of my young audience, right? They stated it's important to run early faster. So it was 60-40 on IG. But on Twitter, the more experience, like you guys and the experts, it was reversed. Twitter was said later. So or you think, like Ron, you mentioned also, and Coach Wickard, is the parents the one that's putting that in their head, and when they get to y'all have to undo all that? What do you think?
I think it's a combination. It's not just one thing. It's a combination. It's peers who they're around, their friends, could be within their school themselves, how the culture is. It could be their coaches, whoever, if it's a private coach, club coach, high school coach, parents, it could be just themselves as well as it's part of it, because hey, they might get I'll say, like, when I was recruiting, I know a kid that got a letter from LSU, and I'm like, he's not going to be at LSU, but yeah, because he got a letter, he's like, LSU's wanting me. It's just a letter, so he already had I'm going SEC, and he ended up going D2. But I think there's just so much to play. You can't just say, hey, it's because of this reason. I think it's a multitude of factors that play into it.
Okay. Would y'all agree? Y'all can agree or disagree. Do you think some athletes are built to run fast through their freshman, senior year? And some others, you have to train. The reason I brought that up, because I did a little research. If you take Jasmine Montgomery, I believe she's from the San Antonio area. She didn't run fast early, right? But later, she blew everything out the water, right? She blew everything out the water. Sha'Carri, if you go look at her freshman year, it wasn't that great. But later on, she was really moving. She made a statement. And if you look at Christine Mallard, she's just running fast all the time, right? So you know what my thing is it the sprinter's DNA? Or do y'all believe that some athletes can and some,
Well,
can't?
there's been a lot of studies on there's a book called The Sports Gene by David Epstein, not the Jeffrey Epstein. That guy got, killed. But anyway, David Epstein wrote this as a Sports Illustrated author. And he talked about how actually some people have trainable genes. So, like, for example, if you guys look at me on video, I'm not skinny by any stretch of the imagination, but I have a natural low heart rate. But I also don't have the genes that allow for my heart rate to be trained even lower. So as an athlete, I can kind of come in and compete right away and feel a little bit more fit than the average person. But as everybody else's fitness gets better and their progressions go on and they continue to work out, they're going to, in that one particular aspect of my global fitness levels and global abilities in my own genetic makeup, I lack that. So when you look at some of these people, like someone like Emily Sisson, who I coached, who was in the Olympics and finished 10th in the 10K, she just kept getting better and better and better and better. So if you would look at her DNA, and I don't know it, but I would assume that she checks off all those boxes of having the talent already, having a mom and a dad that's super, and they're both Division I athletes. Dad ran for Wisconsin, mom was a gymnast. So now you have this combination of endurance and power all wrapped up into this tiny little package. And oh, by the way, all of her sisters are fast as well. And all of them were Division I athletes. 3 of the 4 were distance kids, and the other kid was a long and triple jumper for DePaul for a year. maybe longer. I don't know. But so there is the genetic component. You have to have it. But there is also a genetic component that says you're trainable. So if you have a good coach, and the athlete you mentioned is at what is that, Reagan High School down there in San Antonio. And on top of that, they got a great overall program. The coach is really freaking good, loves the hell out of her kids. She's phenomenal, and so those types of things are good combinations of factors. And if it was up to me from a social emotional standpoint, I'd like the athlete to keep getting better. But as Justin brought up, with women, it's harder because if they take time off and they're predisposed genetically to have a little transformation of their body, there is an adjustment period that takes place because the hips will change, the Q angle, the angle of the legs will change, all this kind of stuff. And we don't want to stop that from happening. But if you keep a person active, the detrimental effects of what Mother Nature is going to do is going to be minimized. Where the dudes, they just are like on a cheat code throughout high school because they're just getting pumped full of testosterone, right? I mean, that's the reason why people do testo and all that kind of stuff, because it is, no matter what scientific journal just released 2 days ago saying that testosterone really doesn't have an effect on performance. Oh, really? Then why is that men who are 4 to 7 times higher in testosterone wildly out stronger, faster, and performing biological females? The reality is that testosterone makes a huge difference. So those boys are going to get better no matter what. But if they run like crap and run fast, it's harder to break them of bad habits because they're like, I've done it this way. I'm a success. They shut their ears off to you. If they move well and run fast, they're probably going to last a lot longer, be healthier. They're going to be more open to criticism. They're going to be more open to listening because they're going to continue to improve. But if they run like crap and run fast, you're going to get into some trouble. And that's the caveat.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
I'll throw this in there, and I've never said this, and I know this is live. Ryan's going to be like, wow. But in college, on the female side, college coaches are looking at the physiques big time, especially on the female side, because we know that if we are not able to increase their testosterone level, which you can naturally do that by doing a lot of power stuff with them in the weight room, doing some cross training to increase the metabolism, things like that. Like it can be hard. It can be very, very, because you cannot go against genetics. So the only way is if you're going to fight genetics, you got to get them super, super strong. And if they're not willing to do the heavy weights or do certain things, they're going to struggle. It's just the way it is, And so that's a huge factor. And like Ryan said, on the guy side, I mean, testosterone level, you can increase it by doing the same thing. But at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to, in my opinion, proper planning and progression and stuff. I mean, we'll just go back and everyone can look at what Ronnie Baker did in high school and look where he's at now. And I can tell you from seeing it, it's been a progression. It has nothing fancy, nothing crazy and stuff, because again, it's where we want to go, not what we need to do now.
Right.
So I think that honestly, the best thing, is high school coaches have it 4 years guaranteed. They have the kid for 4 years. It's not guaranteed in college. Coach may leave, different program. Kid may want to transfer, and so at the college level, it is harder. And so sometimes they won't see the progression because, one, maybe the kid's not willing to stick with the progression because they don't trust the process. So there's so many different factors that can happen. And like Ryan said, if a guy comes in high school and he's like, Coach, I'm already fast, their ears are closed off. They're like, I'm just going to keep doing it. You're like, I'm telling you, you have to change this if you want to get to here. And a lot of times they're like, nah, I'm good.
And the other thing is that you get into a rhythm lock. So the firing pattern gets wired in really hard, and you haven't exposed them to a lot of other things. So the body just gets very, very, and this is a reality. It's called a dynamic stereotype. And if it gets really hardwired, it takes way longer to undo it because of neural pruning and the firing patterns and all this. And again, when we tell it's like you guys are hearing this conversation, you're probably like, what, are they telling them not to sprint all out or race all? No, we absolutely are. That we absolutely are. But it goes down to what does that look like and what training are you doing to access that all the time? One of the greatest coaches in the world used to coach in Texas for college. His name is Dan Paff or Pfaff. Okay, Pfaff. And one of the things he would talk about is when an athlete runs like a new personal best, he doesn't radically change anything about the program because the athlete has never been there before. You have hyper PR'd. You have super maxed. You have done something your body has never seen. So we have to go, okay, did we get a pop in the tire? Did we have a break in the chassis? What's going on? We got to go back and look at this car like a Formula One car and say, okay, what was the consequence of going beyond anything you've ever done before? And let's stabilize this new you for a week or two or a month before we start initiating new training. And here's the other thing. Charlie Francis, Ben Johnson's coach in Canada, and people have poo-pooed him because of performance-enhancing drugs, all this kind of stuff. But when a kid would PR in practice, that's it. Practice is done. Because what else can you do? You go out there and you try even harder. Well, Bud Winter from San Jose State, Speed City or whatever the heck it was back out. That's not San Jose. I've got the wrong school, but it doesn't matter. Bud Winter, he would talk about, all right, run as hard as you can. Kid would go run as hard as they can. And he goes, okay, I want you to try to run just as fast, but I want you to relax by like 4 or 5%. Lo and behold, on the second run, the kid runs faster. So when you go there has to be a recovery. You have to keep the training maintained. You don't want to go and try to PR again because you're going to get the person hurt because they've never been there before. This is a super maximal experience. And then psychologically, you don't want them to keep trying to make that thing happen right away. You got to give them a little bit of time to recover emotionally and physically and then hit it again. So if I have a kid who runs a crazy PR in the 100 or 200, the next week we don't run it again unless it's a championship phase and that's the step that they got to get to state and I can't do anything about it. But if I don't need them to run that race the next week because there's no qualifying standard thing or something they have to do, I run a different event because I want them to be hungry, but I also want to stabilize the new them and not injure them.
So I'll tie that into back to the original statement. Is it better to run fast early? Okay. So we'll just go in Texas. You know where I'm going with this. The kid runs fast. What are they going to be doing all the time from their freshman year? Relays. Relays. Why? Because it's double points. If it helps the team, and it's no fault to the coaches. That's the system. So guess what? If that's how you have to win. So you got to stack the relays. However, it goes back to like what Ryan was saying. Okay, if they run fast, where are they going? Because your training is going to have to change. It can't stay the same from when they were a freshman. So where are you progressing their sophomore year? What things are you keeping in within their training that worked? And then as you get faster, here's the thing. The improvements of certain things that you do are going to be smaller. It's a smaller window. You're not going to get your big bang for your buck. So like for high school, right? If we know that they can get stronger in the weight room, they're going to be able to apply more force into the track. Okay. So naturally you're going to see a big improvement because of the strength levels. But eventually as you get going, okay, now where's my next big bang going to get to really get them to go faster? And so the other things from a psychological standpoint, and this happened all the time, and Ryan's, I know he's had it too, is when a kid does run fast, the first thing they go, and I'll use this example, I had a freshman at Louisiana Tech. She was 14-2 in high school. Her first outdoor meet, she went 13.5. I said, I'm in trouble. And here's why. It wasn't because I knew I couldn't get her to go faster, because she thought the next race she's going 13.1. And now that's the psychological thing now as a coach. Instantly the kid goes, I just ran 55 flat as a freshman. Next meet, I'm going 54. Doesn't work that way. So that's the other thing as a coach you got to look. So there's a fine balance that you got to teeter on. And it goes back to me. It's knowing the athlete, building the relationship, having the trust. So when stuff like that does take place, you know what to do, because you got to get buy-in at the end of the day. And if they're not bought in and there's other influences happening or parents, whatever, it's going to be tough.
I never understood why. Well, like I said, I'm not a coach. I'm just track dad. Why coaches tie up elite sprinters on relays their freshman year? I seen it this year. I mean, I see it every year. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't know why
I'm
that
going to
happens.
say this. I'll drop a bomb and Ryan add in. And I'm just going to be this is just my opinion. Okay. Relays, you can hide your coaching flaws. Technique work, block work, acceleration work, that takes some skills. You actually have to do things properly in progression to get there. So in my opinion, a lot of it comes down to education of coaches. There's many great ones out there, but it's easy to hide in relays. Because once you put the kid out there in this technical event, sprints, throwing event, things are exposed really quick. So if you ain't doing the right things, again, coaches hear this all the time. Not all. You haven't done blocks all year. It's a big meet. You need to be in blocks. And so the kid's forced into blocks. Well, now the kid doesn't do well, and the coach gets mad at the athlete. The athlete's like, never done blocks, never worked on blocks. Well, you need to be out doing blocks.
Gotcha.
It's not the kid's fault. It's the coach's fault. So that's just my honest take.
So we got a few. You got something, Ryan, on that?
Yeah, I see
like
my
you wanna
boy,
say something.
my dude, Brandon Cooper over here
see
talking
him
about
there?
Texas versus everybody else. Now here's the deal. All right, back in the day, my cousin lived in Arlington, and Texas was the only other place I ever felt like I was at home. Now that being said, all right, we had 2 women in the hammer from Missouri. We had a woman medalist in the steeplechase. We had another woman in the 10K. We got Mike Rogers, who basically runs under 10 seconds every time he steps onto the track. We got all sorts of folks in the javelin. I'm just saying, man, I would say that. And then, oh, by the way, for all my Texas fans out there, when you guys go to the Great Southwest meet, don't forget that Team Missouri brought home both the men and women's title the last couple of years with some high school kids from Missouri. So, I'm just saying. But anyway, I just had to make sure I gave my man Coop the business.
Oh, Coop. Oh, we got a few comments too. So we have a comment that says, develop your athlete over 4 years. The junior year is very important for the recruiting process. So, Coach Wickard.
Yes.
Is it heavier junior year or sophomore year?
Sophomore year is barely taking place. There's a little bit, if you're in the top 10 nationally, and you've had some times that meet some standards, or coaches see a kid that's got a good frame, they're running well, they like how they move. Yeah, you're going to, but all is it going to be is a recruiting letter. That's it. Nothing can happen. And so it depends on each school. Depends on where they're at, with their scholarships, all that. So there's a cycle to everything. So, yeah, there might be some sophomores that might get some look. Hey, we're interested. Fill out this questionnaire. Junior year, obviously, NCAA rules. You can start making contact with those kids. You can bring them on an official visit. And a lot of coaches are like, hey, if I can get this elite kid to come on an official visit as junior, I've done one thing. I either get them to commit, which is very rare, or I took away one of their official visits. So that way they can't go to another school and stuff.
Mm.
So there is a game to it. So, but yes, for me, head coach is always like, hey, look at the juniors. But if we still have money left over for the senior class, guess where my attention is going to? I got to finish up my recruiting for the senior class. So I'm sending out flyers, info, getting, inboxing kids, give me their stuff that are juniors. So that way, then I can start putting stuff out there. So at the end of the day, junior year starts, but it's still, even though NCAA rules changed, at the end of their junior year, it starts getting hot.
Gotcha. So Ron, I've got a question. It says their runner, they have athlete, a runner seems to run faster every other year. What do you think that is? Is just the kid don't want to run, or could it be the training, or?
It's weird. I've had two different athletes. Now they wouldn't do every other year, and again, I oftentimes think that has to do more with social things going on in their life, friendships, boyfriends, girlfriends, schoolwork, classes, family stuff, mom and dad, are they together? Are they not together? Those type of things. But I have seen athletes where like literally every other week they would perform really well. And then the next week they would have a poor performance. And so I started to look at, well, why is that? What's going on? Well, if they're females, there are things that happen routinely in a cycle, and I'll leave it at that you may not be aware of when that is or how that happens and all that kind of stuff. It is really not your business. Athletes sometimes share that with you. And when they do share that with you, that's a consideration that if they're sharing it, you need to take it into consideration in terms of the volume of training, how much your work you're doing, because if they are having that, their iron levels are down, which means that healing's not going to be as good, performing is not going to be as good, red blood cell count, the ability to get oxygen and all that kind of stuff, that's all going to play a factor. So what I've tried to do is, with that, knowing that that's coming, I try to take a little bit off of their plate from a performance end. So like I know, okay, they had a great performance this week. Next week, we're not going to the wall and running 4 events, or whatever it is in Texas. You get your 2 and your relay or whatever. I'm going to reduce the amount so that I can try to keep the success going in spite of this rhythm that they have, which is very, very up and down. The other thing is, when you look at that, is if you are paying attention to some quick and easy stuff. So big thing you can do is start giving your athletes some questions that they answer for you every day when they come to practice. Like, how hard did you think yesterday's practice was? 1 to 5. How emotionally are you ready for practice today? And the key to this is, whatever you have them little click on a Google form, right? Make a little list and have them click. You keep that data. It might not help you the first year, but over 10 years, if you're coaching for a really long time, that data is going to help you inform you on decisions that, hey, maybe this week of training was not good, and then I have to pay for it for 3 weeks with my athletes to try to get them back. Or the athletes always complain that this week sucks, but then the next 2 weeks they run out of their minds. And so then you can frame it for them to say, listen, this sucks right now, but we're going through this phase of training to get you to the next level. We don't want to take 2 steps back, but understand that there's an adjustment phase. That's the other thing too. Like, I had a young lady who was really, really fast as a freshman, and then she grew 6 inches. She didn't get hips. She just got really tall. Well, she went from being like this little mouse, just and a rhythm-based, like, a frequency-based athlete, to becoming more of a stride length-based athlete. And over that time period, we finally got that to get all back in order and the coordination to be right. And then she ran faster than she ever ran. And so some of those things, as you're seeing that happen, those are the conversations that you can have with your athlete so that they hold out hope and stay involved in your program so that you can work your magic to get them to even greater performances.
So you're going to love this. Brandon Cooper. He says, freshman year, They pretty much got to make a name for themselves. They belong on the team relays. Put your work in. I'm just paraphrasing. He's pretty much saying you put your work in as a freshman. Um, then after that, you can focus on, your individuals. He also said in here, there's not many freshmen that make it on their individual events. So pretty much he's saying, you coming in as a freshman, you run good, we're going to stick you on the relays. Then when it's your time, it's your time. What do y'all think?
I would agree with that, actually. I think it and it's also going to depend on each part of the country that you're in and stuff. Yes, you're going to have your amazing freshmen that can come in like, man, they're the best on the whole entire team. But then majority of times, yeah, the freshmen are going to have to develop and earn their spots, and they're not going to just come in and just take someone off the relay. So there is definitely going to be a progression, for sure. And I think it's really important. Again, it goes back to the expectation, knowing what things they need to accomplish as a freshman, what the role is on their team, and sort of falling in line of first understanding what is the team culture. Team culture is big, in that. So I think that's, spot on.
Yeah. Well, what'd you think, Ron? You think it's slap them freshmen on relays and it is what it is, or what?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on your team strategy, right? Like if you think collectively they have strength collectively, that it takes a little pressure off of them. I mean, think about like anytime you've ever asked a kid to run an 800 or a 400, right? That's probably always going to be better on a relay leg than in an open race where they're out there naked by themselves, so to speak. But you put that baton in their hand, there's a lot more extra motivation possible. Not always. Sometimes a kid will still tank on you. But if you set it up right, that you're going to get more motivation out of them and they go, oh, I can do this. That isn't as scary. That's not as nerve-wracking. That isn't as worrisome. That doesn't always work because some kids just have mental blocks. But if I'm going to do what I want to do with this kid later, and I feel like this event, this relay is an opportunity to build confidence, then let's do that. Let's build that into them right away. It's a lot easier. It's like in a football game. There's 11 people on the field, including you, and another 11 on the other side. You can hide a little bit. On a relay, you can hide a little bit. You can grow into it a little bit, But that being said, if you've got a freshman on there with upperclassmen, well, now there's more pressure because, well, I don't want to let them down. The upperclassmen are going to be mad if I screw up this relay, whatever. But here's the key. And I saw something on here from one of these other coaches who was talking about like the athlete had not used blocks and then the coach threw him in the blocks at the last meet of the season. I always tell my female athletes, and I know this is gendering, but I tell them dance with the boy that brought you. And what that is don't start tweaking things late. Let's get this stuff out of the way early. Let's rip off the Band-Aid early. If I'm going to put you on this relay, let's get this done and over with. So there's not a lot of pressure. I am not a person who wants to run my kids JV if they're a varsity talent. Oh, they can't handle varsity. Are you kidding me? Let's get that over right away so that they can get those butterflies out of their system, get a baptism by fire, and get used to it. So we had a young lady who was second in the state of Missouri in the 400-meter dash. She's our school record in the 400-meter dash. Awesome kid. She was fourth in the state in the 200-meter dash. We found out in the last 2 weeks of the season, oh no, your front foot is the wrong foot in the block. She was literally double tapping out of that front position off the block. Now, we all know, well, shoot, she could run a lot faster if you switch that up. Yes, but she's been doing that way all year long. So we are going to fix it in the winter and winter conditioning if we're allowed to, and we're going to do it in the spring and get it right. But I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and try something radical, even if it's kind of like the right thing to do from a philosophical, technical standpoint. We're not going to mess with that. Let's just roll through this now and get this done. So for freshmen being on those relays, let's get them on it right away. If that's a good place to give them some opportunities and some experience with some of their peers that maybe are their same age, awesome. I'm all for it.
I will add this because I think happens as well. Obviously, I'm coming from a college level, but I think the other thing when it comes to relays too, if a freshman can be on the relay and build those confidence, okay, they're probably going to take someone off the relay. Okay, so let's say that person that they took off the relay is in an individual event, and that freshman's better than them in the individual event. Let's put this in here. There are favorites. There are politics involved no matter where you go. So, okay, so now you're going to take that senior that's not as good as your freshman and say, sorry, yeah, you're going to have some problems, So I think there's just so many dynamics to it. You, as a coach, you have to think of your scenario situation. And that's why I said culture. What is the culture of your team? Because that's what should drive everything and your objective of why. What's the purpose of this team? Now naturally you can have a coach in there. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, senior or junior, you're out. This freshman is in. So I think it just depends. Because I mean, let's be honest, that does happen. That happens. Not all across the country, but it does happen.
And I get it. I get what y'all saying. Like I say, I'm a parent. Y'all the professionals, and if I have a good sprinter kid coming in there, and you sticking them on relays, them relays better be pretty good. And that's what Mr. Cooper just said. You don't want to go sticking your freshman sensation on a bad relay.
Unless you want them to prove something and earn it. There's nothing wrong with that either. They're freshmen. You got to earn it.
Yeah, true.
Multiple times.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I seen a comment in here. Do y'all think it's important to have a female coach? Go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. If you're coaching females, it's vital to have a female coach. There's overrepresentation of male coaches in all shapes and forms. And so I look at it in a number of different ways. It's the chicken egg, right? So chicken is, well, there's just not a lot of females that want to coach. So therefore there's not a lot of females coaching. Okay. Well, I also think it's because they may not see that as a profession because it's not modeled for them in their daily lives. I talk about this person all the time, so she won't be mad at me saying it, but we have a really, really great coach at Parkway Central who coaches a lot of our distance athletes. Her name is Coach Merriman. She coaches men all year long. And so what does that show? Well, it shows all the young ladies in my program that, hey, I can continue to do this track thing, not just because I'm going to be a professional, but I can do that. I can become a coach. And not only am I going to be excluded to just coaching women, I can coach men too. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's like Doc McStuffins. You have a young lady who's a person of color, who's a doctor in a television show. Everybody growing up goes, I can be a doctor too, because I see it every day on my TV. Modeling is so powerful. And there are conversations that can be had female to female that sometimes females are not comfortable talking to men about. Men aren't comfortable talking to females about. Like, think about this, like a sports bra. If you've got nothing but dudes on your staff, how do you have that conversation with the woman saying, hey, you don't have proper equipment on here. On page 25 here in the East Bay catalog, you may want to think about picking up some of these, and then what's the message to that kid? What the heck? I mean, it's something that has to happen so that athlete can perform and be comfortable. But at the same time, that's both ways that conversation has potential to be disastrous and uncomfortable. It's great to have diversity on your staff. If you coach a lot of people of color, it would be nice to have a person of color on your staff. Yeah. It's important. It doesn't have to happen, but it's flipping useful, because people feel more comfortable. They feel more at home. They have an opportunity to have that initial conversation with someone, and then maybe, and escalate's not the right word, but then maybe that coach makes that athlete more comfortable to then have the conversation with the head coach or the other adult that they really need to have that conversation with. Or those coaches give you information on the side that you're never going to get. Think of, like, I'm a history teacher, so think about this. Franklin Roosevelt's considered like one of the greatest leaders of all time and one of the best presidents in United States history. The best thing that Franklin Roosevelt had was Eleanor Roosevelt. She was his eyes and ears, his literal legs in some situations. And there were conversations that she was having with people on a much more broader spectrum of life than he was having. And so she could go back as his trusted partner and say, listen, this is what's really going on. This is what I'm being told. And that's the thing that I think coaches have to understand too. Once you become the head coach, you're going to be the bad guy a lot more often. You're going to be the bad cop a lot more often. And your assistant coaches, whether they're good at it or not, are going to assume the role of the good cop once in a while. You know, my dad's a member of law enforcement. I know you were a member of law enforcement yourself. And it's one of those things where, you know, these roles get played in society and you have to be aware of them so that you can manage them and massage them to be the best representation of your program and the relationship you want to develop with your athletes.
Yeah. And I think I think it's important for the parents to get involved, talk to the coaches, because the parents, they're going to have their perception of the kid, and the coaches, you know, they were like, it's going to be different. It's never the same. It's never the same. Because professionals like yourself, y'all go see the little things. That kid might be smoking everybody, but or they getting forced to the ground, or they doing the right things. Because you know when that kid run into somebody at their level, they gonna have problems if they don't have good technique. I definitely get that. I definitely get it. So overall, I think, yeah, later is better. Kids should get developed. I don't agree with the relay. I can't say I agree with the relay, but I get your point as coaches why y'all do it. I get it. I definitely get it. But you got to look at the kid's future, and you know, putting that kid on the relays, you saving them too, right? You saving them a little bit. So I do agree with that. Guys, we've been getting a lot of comments and questions, and then we're looking here. We got somebody that just came in.
I can address Ruth's question. That's
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So Ruth asked if, you know, coronavirus or some kind of catastrophe takes place, what are we going to do to get our kids recruited? That's a big problem. So there's no doubt about that. The biggest problem is that a lot of and it's not a problem, it's a unique circumstance. A lot of college athletes are getting extra years of eligibility because their schools are choosing not to participate because of the pandemic. So what's happening in a lot of places, especially football programs, is there's just not scholarships available because, number one, those kids are getting their scholarships again, or because of the portal situation, people are transferring all over the place. In basketball, there were more people transferring than there were like spots available. So when it comes to perform, we obviously want kids to run fast, but I would say in my heart of hearts, like, they know that, like, when they're recruiting people, they know that, like, hey, like, this kid didn't have this season, because they're also seeing it with their own college athletes as well. Like, whoa, we're way behind where we were before. We're not as prepared as we were before. That happens. So the biggest thing is like that's why the importance of AAU and USATF track is a valuable resource, option, and necessity in our current circumstances, because you can't rely on the high school to compete, you know, or to have a season. So it is important. If you see that coming, you got to get those kids in those other opportunities so they can run fast indoors, or maybe they catch a couple hot times in June or July and run fast. Because if this is something you think your kid has the ability to do, is earn a scholarship, then that needs to happen. Now, the good news, kind of circling back, is if they are really good and maybe they're not at a university of their choice, but they got some money. If they do a great job in college and they get into a good program, it's not always about like, hey, I want the Division I program. It's like, what about the best junior college program or the best NEIA program or the best D2 in your area who has great coaches? And then they get you prepared, and maybe you run really well there, and that's great. And you become an All-American, or you run so well that you want to test yourself at a higher level, and now you have the option to do so. It's all about how you frame the silver lining out of catastrophe. And it's hard because this has been a really challenging period of time for sure, Ruth.
Yeah. You're right about that. And I'm telling you that Corona, it changed everything. I mean, you can't train like you want. It's different. It's different. It's the new. I'll say it's a new track and field. We got to wear masks to track meet. We can't. So I know as coaches, I know y'all like, hey, we got to make sure we keep the kids, at a certain distance. And I mean, it's all type of new stuff with this COVID. I have another topic, but if I'm bringing it up, I know we're going to be here another 2 hours. Dang. I want y'all to hit on it, all right? Let me say another question popped up. I want y'all to hit on it just a little bit. And I know, Ryan, I know you're going to talk about it on your podcast. Ryan has a podcast as well. Ryan, what's your podcast?
It's called The Companions of the Compendium. So COC.
All right. So here's the thing. We're going to just hit on this just a little bit, y'all. Should sprinters run across country? I'm out. I'll see y'all tomorrow. That's the show, guys. That's the show. See y'all later.
All right. So in a collegiate setting, probably not. But it is also one of the things that you have to think about. What do you call a sprinter, right? Is an 800-meter runner a sprinter? Yes. Is the event 60-40, 50-50, depending on their ability levels and their fiber makeup? Yes. Do you need to do long, crazy aerobic work to run a fast 800? Not necessarily. But do you need something that gets you to that point? Yeah, that's the whole basis of my training system called the critical mass system. But it really and we should not go too deep into this because this would be a 2-hour we need to come back and have this conversation with you another time, maybe in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, and I would love to talk it out, but it comes down to a basic rule. How are you doing it? What does it look like? Who is the athlete that you're working with? What is the situation you're in? Where are you? You ask all the questions. Why are you doing it? I will tell you there are people that are a no, that I would kick them off the team if they showed up. But there are more people than not that I could work that for a lot of reasons. It may not be, hey, they're going to run in my varsity 7. It may be like, this is the only legal way I get to coach them. And so they're on my team, on my roster, but they never step on a cross-country course. They never go run 10 miles, on a long run. There's all sorts of things you can do. But yeah, we need to come back and have that conversation. That's a nice little cliffhanger for the group.
Now let Coach Wickard get on it a little bit.
Before we do it, hang on. Before we do it, Ryan did a great job of the holistic. Now I'm going to add this and then we can end it. If you're a hurdler and you're a long hurdler, you better not do cross country. That's all I'm going to say.
Guys, we're going to get back by 2 weeks. We're going to hit that topic. But what I need y'all to do, y'all need to go on Facebook, look up Sprinters Compendium. Compendium? There you go. Look that up. Look up Tier 1. Go like their page. Go follow them. Go on Amazon. That book is on Amazon. Tier 1 provides hurdle training, speed training, mentorship, recruiting, everything. And also go to YouTube. Look us up, Elite Texas Track Girls. And subscribe to our page. We have more videos from Coach Wickard and from Ryan on there as well. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much all the social media sites. You can put in Texas Track Dad, you can put in Elite Texas Track Girl, something's gonna pop up. Also, you can follow us, go to anchorfm.com. We got a podcast on there as well. Check out Ron's podcast. All right, guys, y'all, thank you for joining me again. Great show once again, and we want to get together soon on the other topic. All right, do y'all have anything else? Are y'all good?
Just
Enjoy.
appreciate it, man. As
Have fun.
always,
Stay safe.
thank you guys.
All
Yep,
right,
thank
all
you.
right, all right,
All right,
guys.
guys.
I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
All right.